All right, we're going to keep looking at animating in a 3D space in After Effects. Any layer that we add to After Effects, I'm going to add a new solid and give it some color here. Anything that we add into After Effects, any type of layer, any type of media that we add, we always need to make sure that if we're going to work in 3D space, we click this cube right here. So there's the cube. Now this layer we're able to animate it in 3D space. So you can see now we have X, Y, and Z on anchor point position, scale. We also have orientation and rotation. So we can now rotate this in 3D space. To kind of get a better understanding of the space that we're working in, first thing I'm going to do is just build a floor. So I've brought in this layer here, and I'm going to rotate it on my x-axis 90 degrees, and then I'm going to drag this down using my handle there, and you can see now that we have a floor here, so we have some perspective with this floor. I'm going to add another layer, new solid, and I'm going to change the color just a little bit because right at this point I'm not doing any lighting, so I want us to be able to see the difference between these layers. And again, this needs to be a 3D layer, so I'm going to click the switch on, and now I'm going to use this as my back wall. I'm going to grab the Z-axis there and I'm just going to push it away from me and push it back just to about that point so that I can see that it's matching, and that lets me know that I'm about at the end of this layer right here, this floor layer, and that wall sitting there. Anytime that you need to see kind of what you're doing, you can always go to the active camera right here, and that's what we're looking at, and that's what's going to render out. We can go to Custom View 1. This is probably one of the best perspectives to look at, and you can see here that we have our floor and we have our back wall in there, and this is now laid out in 3D space. So let's go back to active camera and keep building a little bit of a layer, new solid, and I'm going to change the size of this 500, 500. And just so we can have another object in here, I'm going to go to the custom view again, and you can see that in this custom view that layer is not showing up. The reason is at this point we have not turned this into a 3D layer. So I'm going to click the cube, and there's our object again. Using these handles, I can position this. And one thing you will notice, hopefully, is that these layers can intersect with each other. So I'm moving this in 3D space. I'll push this back. We can push it back behind that wall. It disappears. Bring it back into view there. And I'll go back to active camera and take a look at this. And there again, we can push that back, or we can drop this down, and you can see that these objects intersect. So I'm going to build just a little bit of a few objects in here. And I'm going to duplicate that layer, and I'm going to move that one over, and you can also see that I'm going to go to rotation on this, just rotate that a little bit. So again, fairly easy to just start building objects in this 3D space. We can also animate all of these if we want to. I'm going to add one more object in, go back to my active camera, and I'm going to add text in. I'm just going to click in here. And I'm going to bring the size of that text up, get my selection tool, bring that in, and at this point also the text is not 3D. Or it's not going to work in 3D space. So I'm going to click the cube now. It's going to work in 3D space, and you can see that this text layer has dropped in behind this object here. So I'm going to bring it out front just a little bit, and it will intersect with that one. Let's go take a look. Bring this up just a little bit. Let's go take a look at this in the custom view 1. All right, so you can see there what we have going on. So again, just building these objects in 3D space, building an environment with these layers is very simple. So I'm going to go back to the active camera. And one thing also I want to look at are these two, the floor and the wall back there. They are not filling the space, and that's fine if that's what you want to do. Just so you understand a little bit more about how we can work with these layers, I'm going to select those two layers, and I'm going to grab one of these transform controls right here. I'm just going to scale that out, and so now it fills our space. And with these layers, you don't have to worry about those pixelating because we're scaling them up. They'll be fine. And so now you can see that we've covered our entire work area there. And I'll go back to Custom View 1. Let's animate this text. Let's animate a few objects. I'm going to go back to Active Camera. And I'm going to go to Position and then bring this over. And just off frame there, and hit a keyframe, and then we'll go in just a couple of seconds, bring that in, and just before we intersect, we'll have it stop and hold that for a couple of seconds, and then we'll move on out. And then what I'm going to do with, just back up, and right here, once it stops, I'm going to go to that layer, and we'll just move that out of the way. Go to a position on that, set a keyframe, and on this it's going to be easier for me to grab this handle right here and push that out of the way, which I need to go forward in my timeline just a little bit. Create that animation, get that out of the way, and then everything can move forward. So let's see what we've got. So this is just the basics of 3D space. Again, you can move these objects now anywhere on the X, Y, or Z axis. That's what we've added with 3D space. And anytime that you want to animate in 3D space, make sure that your layer, whatever it is, video, image, a JPEG, picture, graphic, anything that you've brought in, make sure when you're going to animate them in 3D space, the only way to accomplish that is to make sure that the cube is selected. And then you can animate these in 3D space. And jump over here to Custom View and take a look at this again, just to kind of get an idea of what we've created. All right, and there's your basics to 3D space.